This episode of the podcast is brought to you by Buzzard Roost Saddles. Buzzard Roost Saddles was born in the swamps of Santa Maria, South Louisiana, and their purpose is to get you standing over your next carcass so you can pick them clean. Proudly made in the USA, every Buzzard Roost saddle is handcrafted with a patent-pending system that brings you independent angle adjustments on your top and bottom panels to provide ultimate comfort. Standing by their motto, "We ain't fancy," Buzzard Roost helps you get the job done without making things overcomplicated. If you're looking for the next tool in your hunting arsenal, you can connect with Buzzard Roost Saddles on Facebook and Instagram, or you can visit their website at buzzardroostsaddles.com. Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Hunt the Wild podcast. I'm your host, Adam Bowlds, and today I'm joined with retired Chief Warden Todd Schaller and current Warden Lieutenant Strelow. How you guys doing?
Doing well.
Yeah, doing very well. How are you doing, Adam?
I'm good. I'm good. I appreciate you guys coming on. I've been trying to get a conservation officer or game wardens or conservation wardens, as you guys call it up there in Wisconsin, on the show from every state. So I'm happy to have the first episode with you guys.
Start on the back end of the alphabet with a W first, huh?
Yeah, that's right. I'll get there. Yeah. So I just want to have you guys introduce and tell a little bit about yourselves and kind of how you guys got started hunting and involved in the outdoors.
Sure. I'll go first. Todd Schaller. I'm born and raised in Wisconsin. Really never left Wisconsin other than vacations and things like that. I grew up in the western part of the state, over in the Cooley area, actually where Tyler works right now. La Crosse area is where I grew up. I currently live in my wife and I and a couple dogs and a couple cats live in the Madison area, which is the capital for Wisconsin. I'm pretty traditional in how I got into hunting and fishing. I grew up in a hunting and fishing family. My dad was very active outdoors person, hunter, fisher. We camped, we hiked, we biked, we really did it all as a small child. And so that was kind of my path in. Grew up in a small town, in a time and a place. I'm 56 years old, so it was very easy to get access to private land for hunting. We knew a lot of farmers, we knew a lot of people, so that the things that we maybe struggle with today didn't really exist back then, and it was an easy path. Probably maybe a unique piece of what I did is I actually introduced my dad to archery hunting and trapping both. He was not an archery hunter. Archery hunting probably was not as big back then as it is today, and he wasn't a trapper, but I had an interest in those, primarily because my dad's rule was I couldn't gun deer hunt until I was 14. And I was able to figure out that I could archery hunt. He would let me archery hunt at 12. So I pursued the archery avenue, and rather than him just driving me around, dropping me off and basically waiting in the car for me to spend a couple hours out hunting, he eventually got into archery hunting and then hunted along with me. And trapping was very similar. I had an interest in trapping and got into trapping, and then he was driving me. Couldn't drive, and eventually he's like, well, I might as well go with you. And he got a trapping license, and we trapped together for a long time also. So that's kind of a unique part of my introduction to the outdoors.
Yeah, that's really cool. You never really hear it going the opposite way. It's usually the father teaches the son or the grandpa teaches, the grandson. But I'll have to say that's probably the first time that I've heard it, the son teaching the dad. It's pretty cool. Tyler, what about you? How did you kind of get started in hunting in the outdoors? Is that something you picked up as a kid or later in life?
Yeah, kind of similar to Todd. So I grew up in Minnesota, Rochester, Minnesota, which is the southeast part of the state. And my family, very much a middle class family. My dad was a construction worker for 40 years. My mom was a nurse, and in our free time, we did stuff outdoors. We went camping. We went. My grandparents had a lake home up in the Upper Peninsula, Michigan. Spent my summers up there, boating, fishing, all that good stuff. And then my other grandparents had a small little hobby type farm just outside of Rochester, and when I wasn't at home, I was out on that little hobby farm, and that's where I kind of got introduced into hunting. I don't come from a hunting family on either side of my family. I had I showed interest in it at a very young age. My grandfather on my dad's side kind of showed me the ropes as far as what firearms were and how to shoot and things like that, and kind of let me go off into the into the wild blue yonder behind his house there on the little farm, and I went after everything I could, as a kid, and I didn't know any different. I didn't know any laws. I didn't know anything. It kind of morphed, and it became a little bit of an obsession for me, and I learned how to do it on my own. Started to get friends that knew how to do things, that taught me things, and I remember my first deer I shot at 16 years old, and it was a little nubbin buck, and still to this day, that's my favorite deer that I've ever harvested. So, um, love the outdoors. Currently, in the La Crosse area is where I'm working, and I have a family. I have a bunch of kids. I got 4 boys at home, and I'm married. And any chance we get, we're out doing something. We're on the river camping, fishing, hunting, trapping. I mean, anything and everything that we can do outside. So, on top of work, obviously, I work in the profession too, which is just outstanding. I mean, my life is being outside and enjoying the natural resources. So, I'm very blessed in that way, no question.
Yeah, definitely living the dream. As far as I would be concerned, you get to be around hunting and fishing all day, or be teaching about it, or um, doing it on the weekend. Now, I have to ask, do you ever come across people while you're out with your family that you see maybe a violation or something, and you kind of have to jump into warden mode, or is that something that doesn't really happen that often?
Yeah, so I see things all the time, but I'm very good at separating my work life from my family life. And some wardens carry off duty, and they're able to jump in and do things if they need to. Generally speaking, we ask that even our folks that are carrying off duty that be a good witness. There's no reason to put yourself into a situation when you're on your personal time. And there's lots of times I've called. I'm the supervisor for the team over here on this side of the state, and I have 8 folks out working at any time, on the weekends, nights, mornings, whatever. And I'm often calling those folks if they're out and about. They can come handle it. But yeah, I try to be just a good witness, forward the information on, and do it that way. And to be honest, sometimes if it's kind of the small stuff, I don't sweat the small stuff. That stuff's happening around the clock.
Yeah.
So I don't let it. I try not to let it consume me, I guess what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So, a lot of people that I talk to, just in daily life, and friends and stuff that are into public service, a lot of them tell me, I wanted to be a cop since I was a kid, or I wanted to be a firefighter, or whatever, since I was a kid. For you guys, was being an officer something that you thought about, maybe in high school, or maybe younger than that, or was that something that you considered maybe later on in life?
I mean, I knew because of my interest in the outdoors, and I knew I wanted to do something in that line of work. And in Wisconsin, we have one of the state universities at Stevens Point, has a a very focused natural resource program it's well known for that. And I started to kind of explore what that looks like. Then I had the opportunity to go to a career day, or a career week, actually, a conservation career week, that was sponsored or held. The local Lions Club paid my whatever little tuition to go to that. And and there I was really introduced to all facets of conservation work. And I remember vividly, I knew him later on in my career, that the warden who came in and talked about his job and his role, and that really sparked it for me and kind of tipped the scales that direction. There was nobody in my family who was in law enforcement or, pushed it from that perspective. It was really kind of seeking it out myself. And once I got the point, going to college, I had an internship opportunity to work with a warden. I probably was a sophomore, and basically ride along with him. I did it for a fall or a couple months. I actually didn't go to school for that semester and interned for that semester. And that just really kind of locked it in. And that was really the direction I wanted to go, when I just pursued it from that point in time. And I was fortunate. I got hired right out of college as a full-time warden within 6 months of graduation, which is not normal. And I think timing was good. There was vacancies, and they were filling a lot of positions at the time. And it was a different time and different era. We'll maybe talk about, what they look for in a warden nowadays versus what we looked for 30 years ago when I got hired. But that was my path. Pretty traditional at the time. Probably it's much different, when Tyler came on and today, the type of people that they hire and what their path is. And I'll let maybe Tyler touch on that.
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah, so I've been working for the Wisconsin DNR for 16 years now. So I was hired in 2006. As far as getting to that point, when I was in high school, I was kind of that mediocre student, and I enjoyed being outside, and I enjoyed turning wrenches on cars. And early on in my senior year, my mom asked me, she's like, what are you going to do? What's your plan after school? I was like, I don't know. I think I'm going to go do the mechanic thing, or I don't know, maybe I'll go to college. And then she started asking me, well, if you go to college, what are you going to do? What are you going to go for? And I was like, well, I like being outside. So we kind of talked that one out, figured it out, decided that, maybe college is going to offer a 4-year college is going to offer a few more opportunities for me. And I really did definitely favor the natural resource stuff. So I ended up going to the University of Minnesota in the Twin Cities. And at that time, they had a College of Natural Resources, and that's now the College of Agriculture and something else. It's been renamed since then. But I went there, and I didn't necessarily have the being a conservation warden career in mind at that point. I was more, I kind of knew what the biologists did, and I was kind of more of the biology side of things. So I was working towards a degree in fisheries and wildlife. And probably my sophomore year in college, I ended up getting an internship with the Minnesota DNR as a watercraft inspector. And through that internship, I got to know the agency in Minnesota. I got to do some job shadows with different folks in the agency, and did a couple ride-alongs with some of the local wardens. And as soon as I did that, my eyes opened up wide. And from then on, that's what I want to do. That's what I'm going to school for. That's what I'm focusing on doing as a career. And that's what led me down that path. I ended up graduating from college with a 4-year degree. Then I went and got my law enforcement certification in Minnesota. And then I ended up taking a non-law enforcement job with the Minnesota DNR, doing some land management stuff full-time for about 1.5 years. And then I got picked up in Wisconsin as a warden. So that's the way my path worked.
Yeah. It sounds like both of you guys, you both mentioned that you did internships. So it seems like that's probably for anybody wanting to be a warden, that's probably something that's pretty important to kind of try out, wouldn't you say?
Yeah,
go ahead, Tyler.
I'd say it's important for 2 reasons. Number one is it exposes you to the work that you're looking at doing. And, I'll just be upfront. Like this type of work is not for everyone. I know, we check folks in the field and talk to folks, and they're always like, oh, I thought about being a game warden. and they're doing something else in life and being and really successful in what they're doing. And it's not it's much more of a lifestyle than it is a career. And I always say to do it the right way. My wife laughs at me when I say that, but to do it the right way, I think that's the way it's got to be.
Yeah.
And we can discuss that a little bit more in depth later on during the podcast. But I think, yeah, exposing yourself to what the career is, and then also realizing that there's other, natural resource type jobs out there within those, public sector agencies, and then even outside of that in the private sector too. So it's just a great opportunity to kind of see what's out there and explore the options.
Cool.
Yeah, I think that internship was a good exposure, and I think from afar, the job you don't get a real good handle of what the job is, as Tyler touched on it. And there's some great shows, Northwood Law and a couple others that when I was chief, I talked to the chiefs that were part of those shows, and those are neat shows, and it's a good way to demonstrate to the watching public what part of that work is. But you got to remember, that's still a TV show. Yeah. And like you do with your podcast, they're editing pieces of it. They're taking, there's things that don't get onto TV. And I'm not saying the shows aren't real, because they are. It is following the wardens, but they're not showing all aspects of it. And I think those shows are a good exposure. But to really get a handle on it, if somebody wants to do a career in it, I think ride-alongs, internships, and elbow to elbow with somebody doing that work is a really good opportunity to see if that's the work for you.
Yeah, it seems like I can imagine anything that's on TV is always going to be kind of reality TV. It's going to be the good highlights, and they're going to kind of take the boring stuff or the not so glamorous stuff out, to get the best out of that hour, best hour out of that 30 minutes. So I want to talk now kind of about the process of becoming a warden in Wisconsin, and kind of how long it takes from start to finish, including the training. And does it require a 4-year degree, or is it just an associate's, or is there no schooling at all?
Yeah, so we've changed over the years. And so right now the requirements are that basically upon having 5 years on, you have to have obtained 60 college credits. That's the minimum requirement. So you have to be 21 years of age, and then upon having 5 years on, you have to have 60 college credits. So that's like a typical 2-year degree, basically. Now, just because that's what the minimum is to get in, what you see from folks that are getting hired is much different than that. And right now we kind of have two routes, or kind of two batches of folks that come to us. It's folks that were prior law enforcement officers, so sheriff's deputies, state troopers, city cops somewhere, that have a handful of years on. They have some natural resource experience, and they're looking to do something different. So we get, it seems like right now half the class that we hire, if we're hiring a class of 12, half of them will be that group. And then the other half are the folks that are we can call them non-credential. They don't come to us necessarily with law enforcement training. They might have a 4-year degree. They might have a 2-year degree. They might have no degree. And they might have some really unique work experience that just qualifies them to enter into this line of work. So, we've had folks come to us in that batch that are folks that are, doing a career change where they were a teacher, and they decide, you know what, I want to pursue this other career, and I think I have the qualifications to do it. And they come to us, and sometimes they do, and we take them on and get them trained up. But this hiring component, this is a huge topic. So, basically what we're looking at finding folks that are self-motivated, responsible, able to prioritize and work on their own. Because when you're a field warden, you're running your own show for the most part, and you have a ton of responsibility. And not everybody is capable of managing that and being successful. So Our hiring process it's long, it's drawn out. We just started the hiring process for this next year's class. We're looking to hire about a dozen folks, and that process launched at the beginning of March, and it ran for 3 weeks. We had about about almost 800 applicants that applied for those,
Wow.
12 positions.
Wow.
And now, between now and October, when those folks start, we're going through the actual hiring process. So we grade their, applications. We invite folks back for interviews. We figure out of those folks that we interview who we want to hire. Then we do a comprehensive background investigation on them. And it takes a lot of time, energy behind the scenes to make sure we're hiring the right folks to get them in the door. And they'll start sometime kind of towards the middle to end of October, and then they go on to their training year. So, and that process is a long process too. So depending on how they come to us, whether they're folks that are credentialed, they have law enforcement credentials, they'll be part of, what we call the abbreviated group, and they go to academy, and their academy is much right out of the gate is focused more on the DNR stuff, working for a state agency and that kind of things. And then the other group that come to us that don't have law enforcement credentials, we have to get them certified through the Wisconsin Department of Justice. So we have our own police academy that we put on. It's a 720-hour academy. So it's about 4.5 months where they go through the police academy, and they have to it's just like going to school. In fact, they would earn some credits for it for completing it, just like going to a tech school, and they get certified as a law enforcement officer in the state of Wisconsin. So once those folks get through that process, they graduate, and then both groups come back together, and they have the actual just kind of DNR focused academy where they learn about all the different regulations. They learn about all the recreational vehicles that they're going to have to operate and those kind of things. So that's kind of the academy process. And then maybe I'll break there and we can talk about the actual field training that they have to go through in that first year too. I don't know if Todd, do you have anything to add to that? I know you've seen the academy changed a lot since you were hired.
Yeah, to Tyler's point, it's changed over time, and it's changed for the better. There's no doubt about it. And I think it's changed across all law enforcement agencies, and it's not just conservation wardens or game wardens. It's all law enforcement is really kind of looking at how they hire people and bring people on and train people in that law enforcement world. And Tyler touched on the self-motivated, responsible individuals. I think another big component of it in the hiring process is looking at people who you got to be good with people. You got to be people oriented, and you got to be a communicator. And those are key things that you look at. And an element of that is at the end of the day, you can't forget that you're a law enforcement officer, and you got to engage in places, and you got to, address issues, and you got to address controversy in front of you. And that's not easy. That's, as Tyler said, it's not everybody can do that. So, those are things that you look at. Do they have to know everything about hunting and fishing? Definitely not. Those are things you can learn. I think they have to have some basic understanding of hunting and fishing and the outdoors and camping and hiking and all those things. Yeah, I think a basic understanding of that, but more importantly, having a passion for conservation is a big part of that. And then, because that passion then drives your learning, and you start to grow and as a person, and you start to grow as a conservation warden. So all the things that Tyler mentioned are all positive changes that have occurred over time. And really the hiring process, as Tyler indicated, it's going on 365 days of the year, because the field wardens out there every day talking to people, they're the best recruiters there are. They run into people who ask them questions about being a game warden or being a conservation warden, and they can really kind of set the tone and set the path for somebody who might want to change a career, as he said, go from a teacher to a conservation warden, or go from a mechanic to a conservation warden. So it's really a 365 effort, and recruiting is a big component of that.
Would you say that you guys, like your agency, do you guys do any kind of recruiting when it comes to like going to schools and talking to kids, high school kids, anything like that? Or is it mostly, if you're only hiring 12 and you're getting 800 applicants, I can imagine you're probably not needing to spend a whole lot of money on recruiting.
Yeah, so we actually, the field wardens are encouraged, and I'd have to look, but it's probably part of their, requirements for their station every year to do some sort of recruiting or public outreach, and they're naturally doing it. Like we're in the schools everywhere from kindergartners up through high school, college. I talk at multiple college classes every year still. And we're always pushing that recruiting. We're always trying to expose folks to what this career is and some of the benefits of it. We also we have a full-time administrative warden who is responsible for recruiting and hiring. And they have a work group, a committee that's full of field wardens and supervisors, and even some of our non-credentialed staff that are in our division, to help, recruit and try and find the right people for the job.
So let's pretend that somebody, they got hired and they're getting ready to kind of go through the actual field training or like the schooling process. I want to kind of touch on the different phases, maybe, by the weeks or kind of like what it all consists of as far as like being at the academy and all that stuff. I have seen some videos and some pictures of Indiana conservation officers, and when they kind of show up for their training, their initial thing, it's very like militarized, kind of like boot camp style. Is that what you guys kind of got going on there, or is it a little more laid back?
It is. We've transitioned. It is adult learning style is what our academy is. We don't do the militaristic, get down and give me push-ups and march in position and so on and so forth. We don't do that stuff. We're hiring adults. We expect them to come in and act like adults and take the job seriously and work and learn and give it their all to learn the job. We do have our academy. One place we have it is at the State Patrol Academy here in Wisconsin. We share that facility with them. And a lot of our classes and stuff are out of that facility. So it does have a bit of a militaristic feel to it, I'll say. And, I think the reality is if you're taking folks away to live they're living in dorms and they're at a facility that's, a state-owned facility that has some of that militaristic style to it. So there is a little bit of that feel, but we very much are, I like the term a little more laid back, for sure. Yeah.
When you were kind of going through, Todd, was it more like boot camp, or was it laid back then?
No, I think Wisconsin, and there's several state natural resource agencies that have a very, militaristic academy setting. I know Indiana's that way. I know Illinois is that way. Wisconsin really never has had that feel to it. They've always had the approach that Tyler that highlighted, with kind of that adult learning. The 720 hours that Tyler touched on, that any law enforcement officer in Wisconsin basically has to graduate or complete that 720 hours or be grandfathered through some type of testing if they come in from another state. So a lot of the training is similar to whether a sheriff's department is doing it. The one thing we have, because of our academy, is we can tweak it and adjust it to have a natural resource flavor. So maybe the scenario-based training, rather than being a burglary type setting, or, some type of use of force related to theft or burglary. Maybe it's a natural resource flavor to it, or, crash investigations is maybe talking more about an ATV or a snowmobile or a boat versus a car. So that's a little bit what we can tweak and adjust in that academy setting. But it hasn't changed dramatically. The number of hours has changed. When I went through, it was 320 hours to be certified as a law enforcement officer in the state of Wisconsin. So that was 1989. And now it's 720. All positive changes. It's because of the demands on what law enforcement officers have to do day to day. That the work, the amount of training in the academy setting has really changed over time.
So this question just kind of popped in my head, but I'm kind of interested in to hear what you both would say. When you went through your training, does anything stick out, or what was the hardest thing for you guys going through training? Was it anything physical, or was it more of the classwork stuff, or maybe qualifying with your guns?
Yeah, I'll start on that one. So it was definitely stressful. I mean, it's a pass-fail scenario, and it's scenario-based training that you're going through. And when I went through, it was 520 hours, and that was 16 years ago. So it was a long time. It felt like a long time. It was stressful. I was a lot younger. I'd been 23 when I was doing that, and so yeah, it was intense. There was some physical. Although it's not militaristic, you had to, every week you're working out every day. There's required PT you got to do. And I would say probably the most stressful was the test out weeks, where, you have to go and successfully get through these scenarios, everything from just a general law enforcement contact all the way through a deadly force situation where you got to make the right decision. So, and you've probably seen videos of this stuff, but we're going into a scenario, and it may be hands-on where you're fighting with the guy for 1 or 2 minutes and taking control of him and getting him to the ground and getting him in handcuffs. And yeah, that's stressful. But the reality is, in my profession, like, that's stuff you have to do sometimes. So you better be ready for it, and you better have some exposure to it before you have to do it in real life. And that's what the whole, law enforcement academy is all about, is trying to expose the officers to this stuff in a training type situation. So when it does happen in real life, they're more successful and they can make it through it.
Cool. What about you, Todd? Anything stick out in your head that was most difficult for you?
Tyler really touched on it. I think it was 320 hours, so it was much shorter, but it was really the grind. So we, at that point in time, sad to say, computers were not where they are today. I wasn't sitting on a laptop. We had to take notes during class. Our notes actually got graded at the end of the week to make sure you were, documenting the information that was shared. We had weekly tests that you had to pass. The firearm training you had to pass. You had to score so much, and Tyler touched on it. The academy now is scenario based, and it's similar, probably a little more intense than it was back then. But I think it's more the grind. I don't know that it's one thing or the other. It's the grind, and you're away from home. You're away from your family. You're away from your loved ones. You're away from your kids. For 5 months, 4.5, 5 months with a 720-hour academy. So that has an impact too. Going home on the weekends, but on the weekends you might have to be preparing for a test that is going to occur on Monday. So it's a tough program. But I think, as Tyler mentioned, it's really trying to expose people to all facets of law enforcement in a training environment, to see that they can do what they need to do in a non-training environment and do it safely for not only themselves, but the public that they're serving.
So I imagine that anybody that wants to be a warden in Wisconsin probably would want to know kind of where they're going to be placed in the state. When they sign up for this whole process, is there any way, let's say you're living in County A, and you want to work in County A, is there any way you can do that when you sign up, or is it kind of just we're going to stick you wherever we want to stick you, and you're out of luck?
Yes.
I'll let Tyler tell how it is now, but I can tell you when I got hired, they would never put you or even think about putting you in a place you wanted to be. Again, a different time, a different place, but basically if I told somebody I wanted to be in, La Crosse, where I grew up, or Bangor, where I grew up, they would, there's no way in heck they would ever put me there. They controlled where you went at the time, and they assigned you. So I grew up in a town of 1,000, and my first station was 20 miles south of Milwaukee, and it was in Racine County. I was exposed to traffic and traffic lights and people and cultures that I have never ever even imagined growing up. Some exposure in college, but nothing like what I experienced. And it was all good. I mean, it was a great learning opportunity and a great exposure, but thankfully over the course of time, we've probably changed a lot, and I'll let Tyler touch on where they are now.
Yeah, it's changed a lot. Even since when I was hired, the first year of training, I was hired and they said, you're going to work somewhere in Wisconsin. And I got hired in January, and in October, I remember getting the call. It was like October 20th, right around the end of October. And they said, hey, you're going to Dane County near Madison. And I was like, oh, okay. I had 2 months to get my family there.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, that's the way it was. And that's only 15, 16 years ago. But now, so the way it works now is we do station specific hires. We realize that's a hiccup. That was a hiccup for us to try and find folks and keep folks. So we've had to basically kind of switch around how we do some transfers, get stations opened up for our hiring process. So they've basically gone through the transfer process. So folks that are already wardens have had the opportunity to take open stations, and they've cleared. So then once we get a list of cleared stations, then we incorporate that into the hiring for the next class. So like this class, when they get hired, they'll know where they're going. There's going to be 12 to 15 cleared stations that they're going to know where they're going when they get hired, which really helps as far as recruiting some of the local folks from the area, for sure.
Yeah, it kind of gives them some time to prepare and figure out what they need to do. So I imagine your counties are all different sizes. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say it also allows people to make. I mean, when I was doing it, I was a college age kid, so I had no family, no kids. I could have went anywhere, and I was willing to go anywhere. But the system they have now allows people, maybe with a family or a little older, and maybe make a change in career paths, to do it knowing where they're going to be, or maybe do it knowing they might have to go away for training for a year, and kind of have a limbo period like that, but they know they're going to go back to where their house is and their family is and their kids are, and not displacing kids from school. So yeah, it's a great step that has taken a long time to get there, and little iterations, along the way to get Wisconsin to that point. But it's a good step from a recruiting and retention perspective.
Yeah, it's super interesting to see kind of how it's evolved over the years for how it was when Todd was in, and then how it is for you now, Tyler, and you can kind of see how the hours have slowly kind of built up. It kind of makes you wonder, in 20 more years, are the hours going to be double as long as they are now, or so I imagine your counties are different sizes in Wisconsin. How many wardens do you guys have in each county, or is it I guess it's probably county specific?
Yeah, so we don't necessarily have wardens assigned to individual counties. There's some wardens that will have parts of 3 counties, 4 counties even.
Mm. Hmm.
But on average, we have like 150 field warden positions, and so there's 72 counties in Wisconsin. So you do the math; it's a little over 2 wardens per county, but that's not really the way it works. Um, I have a very rural part. I have 6 counties on my team, and I have 8 wardens that cover those 6 counties. So you have almost a whole county to yourself, basically, is the way it works in some of the more rural areas. But now, when you go to areas, closer to the more urbanized areas like the Madisons and Milwaukees, Kenosha, then you have multiple wardens, 3, 4, 5 wardens in a county sometimes. And now, with recently, over the last 4 years here, we've taken on our recreational property duties. So we're doing all the law enforcement work on our state parks, state forests, and some of those areas that have what we call like tier 1 parks, our busy parks where we have millions of people coming through every year. We'll have 5 wardens in one county to cover that workload. So
Wow.
Sauk County is the perfect example. We have Devils Lake State Park, which is a park that a lot of folks know about. We have millions of people that come there, and we're running shifts. We're a small police force on that property, and during the rec season, basically May through October, we're running shifts on that property, and we have 2 wardens on fairly often. So, like I said, it depends. Our job, and I should touch on this earlier, the conservation warden job is so incredibly varied. Our responsibility is natural resource related activities. So we have all the typical stuff you think of, like the hunting, fishing, trapping, that type of work. And then we have all the recreational vehicles. So the boating, the ATVs, the snowmobiles, the off highway motorcycles. And then we have our rec property work. So that police supervision on those state properties. We have that work. And then we have environmental enforcement work. So a lot of states are split. They have their, Department of Natural Resources, and then they have their pollution control or environmental protection agencies. Well, that's all wrapped into one here, and that's all the work that we have to do. And we're the enforcement branch of the agency, so that all falls on us. It's an extremely varied job, and it's changes seasonally as well. So it's just as soon as things start winding down in one area, they start picking up in another, and it's just a constant cycle of things changing.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned all that, because I was kind of wondering, like, when it's not deer season or turkey season, it's not like, I guess, the busy season. I guess me and a lot of other people would probably wonder what you guys are doing all day, but I guess in the summertime you're probably doing boating registrations and checking for DUIs out on a lake or something like that.
Yeah, and that really varies from state to state. I think every state, potentially their natural resource law enforcement program is slightly different. I know the Dakotas, North and South Dakota, they're really kind of fish and game focused, fish and game type work. Texas, Florida, Michigan, Minnesota, to a part very similar to Wisconsin, where they do a very broad area of responsibility. I think Indiana's kind of a blend. I think they do some rec vehicle in addition to natural fishing and game. So it really varies a lot from state to state as far as who's doing what work. And I think it's as a former chief, it's a good thing that we have all that diversity in what we do, because it provides a variety of funding sources that allows us to stay relevant and important to the public we serve. And that seems very managerial in a statement, and it probably is, but it's the truth. And when you hear about it all the time that the number of hunters and anglers is decreasing, and it is. And, every state's trying to change that or modify it or slow it down. But the states that just rely on hunting and fishing for their funding source, they struggle in that environment when, the number of licenses are less and less and less and less. So, there's some good aspects of having a diverse work area that Wisconsin does in some other states. And it's a good thing, I think, in the long run.
Yeah, I never really thought about that too. The funding thing, you can get funding from all those things instead of just one thing. It kind of, you guys got to be funded well, or you're going to be shrinking and losing people, I would imagine. So I have seen wardens out in the field, talked to them, been stopped by them, checked by them. But I've never seen kind of inside of a warden's truck or a vehicle or, their boat or whatever they're carrying around. So I kind of want to know what kind of gear you guys, keep in your vehicles, and maybe some important tools that you guys carry that maybe not everybody knows that you carry, because we all know you guys carry a gun and, a radio and everything, but is there anything else that you keep in your vehicle that's pretty important?
Oh my gosh, if you had to look in my vehicle right now, I'd be a little embarrassed, but yeah, no, we have tons of gear, and we have to be well prepared for the different types of work that we're doing. So, I drive a half-ton Chevy pickup, 4-door. It's unmarked, so I don't have markings on mine. Some of our staff do, but I don't. And it is inside the vehicle, it's a police vehicle. It's got the computer, the radio, the lights, the siren, all that stuff. And then just like any other police officer, state trooper, I have a rifle in there. We use the AR-15 platform. And then we have a hodgepodge of everything else that you can imagine, from life jackets to float coats to spotting scopes to night vision to range finders. Yeah, kind of depends what time of year it is. We have a lot of safety equipment and rescue equipment, like throw bags, fire extinguishers, all kinds of different stuff. That's just kind of always riding around in the squad. Because you just never know when you're going to need it, and you got to be prepared to go to any call. So with that, we also have water sampling kits, environmental stuff that we have to carry with us. Yeah. So
what kind of sidearm do you guys carry?
We're carrying the Glock 17. We transitioned to the 9mm. So a lot of agencies have gone that direction now. Yeah.
Has that Todd, have you kind of seen the change in gear and the change in firearms and stuff as you kind of went through it from when you got in to later on, the more advanced stuff? What kind of firearm did you carry when you first started being an officer?
We were issued Smith & Wesson 357 revolvers at that point in time. And yeah, there's a significant change in the things that a truck looks like now. Actually, when I first got hired, I had a car. I started with a Plymouth Volare, or kind of that police package looking squad car. Then I went to a 2-wheel drive truck. I was in southern Wisconsin, and they refused to buy us 4-wheel drive trucks, even though there was a lot of 4-wheel drive trucks out there. They didn't. If you were in the South, you didn't need a 4-wheel drive, was kind of the mindset. And then thankfully, over the course of time, the types of vehicles that wardens drive in has changed dramatically. But to Tyler's point, really their truck it's their office in a sense. It's their office on wheels. So, when I got on, we didn't have computers. We didn't have a cell phone. So I would get a call over the radio that there was a hotline, which is our tip poacher line. And they couldn't give me the information over the radio because it was broadcasted and people had scanners. So they would just call your number, State Patrol dispatch is how we dispatched, and they would say, "Can you give us a call for a hotline?" Well, I would then have to drive to either an office, a payphone, which Adam, do you remember a payphone? Do you know what a payphone looks like?
Yeah, just a little bit.
Occasionally I would maybe go to the sheriff's department or the police department. If I was in the rural part of the county, thankfully I knew enough people and had informants and people I could go to their house and they knew who I was. It wasn't like I was knocking on a stranger's door. But I have to call in to dispatch. They would give me all the information and then I would investigate it. Well, what would happen is sometimes when I got the radio call, I would have been within miles of the complaint. Because I had to go get to a phone, I might drive 10 miles the other way. And obviously with cell phones and computers and things like that. So it's really changed the work, and there's a lot of efficiencies that come along with it, and there's probably some headaches that come along with it as well, because you are never really completely disconnected anymore. And that's good in some ways, and it can be a challenge in the others. But yeah, there's been a dramatic, but the basic equipment that Tyler talked about, binoculars, the warm weather gear, cold weather gear, the life jackets, the throw ropes, all the things that, you need to kind of get through your day, take the technology out of it, was still there. We had shotguns instead of rifles. And we switched to rifles, Tyler, maybe 9 years ago, something like that, where we got rid of the shotguns and went completely to rifles. So, a lot of changes.
Yeah, that's definitely interesting to see how it's changed. So in my home state of Indiana, I follow Indiana conservation officers on Facebook, and I see a lot of the time when they bust somebody for a wildlife violation, and a lot of times I see them bust people for illegally digging ginseng. It always seems like they have some kind of drugs with them, and it's usually meth. Is it kind of like that in Wisconsin? It seems like wildlife violations and drugs go hand in hand.
Yeah, so I guess unfortunately, when folks are committing crimes, there's often other crimes associated with them. And there are, the ginseng one's an example. We have where I work in the bluff lands of the state of Wisconsin. This is big time ginseng country here. And I think a lot of the folks that we end up dealing with that are illegally digging ginseng are also using drugs, specifically meth, on multiple search warrants that I've participated in. I can't say all, but darn near all of them. If we're going into somebody's house to get some evidence of ginseng violations, there's often drugs there, and it's often meth. Unfortunately, I don't know what that tie is, but that is a commonality. As far as other wildlife crimes, it's hit or miss.
Yeah.
I mean, you can have folks out poaching deer at night that are just normal folks, completely out committing a crime, yes, but that's all they're doing. And then you can have that group out doing that, and they're also have drugs in the car and out drinking and driving too. So it just depends. I think, like I said, though, I think when there's one crime, there's often others, and they do run hand in hand on occasion. What the reason is for that, who knows?
Todd, when you were an officer, did you deal with a whole lot of illegal ginseng digging, or is that more of a new era thing?
It's really a new era thing. They were harvesting ginseng at the time. It just, I think as an agency, probably we just weren't paying as attention to it to the level that we maybe should have, or we weren't paying attention to it, on a large scale. Several years ago, because of the decline, the delicate nature of ginseng, we started to put some effort into it rightfully, and it was the right thing to do because we're, part of our mission is to protect the resource, and, you're protecting a very delicate resource, although it's not maybe known to every hunter and fisherman that there's even ginseng out there or what it looks like. But it is an important resource that we have to protect. And, to Tyler's point and what you experienced in your home state of Indiana, I think anytime there's money tied to something and ginseng can be sold, there might be a connection back to drugs. And it's probably being very generalistic or umbrella approach, but it's true, and more often than not. And I think that's why in Wisconsin and probably in Indiana, there's money tied to ginseng, and people who are needing drugs need money, and they can get it one of two ways. They can steal it because their job's probably not going to give them enough of it, or they can go try to, in ginseng world, try to poach it. There's really, I think when I was working, and even today, as a conservation warden, you really come across probably 3 to 4 classes or group of people. On a daily basis, you'll probably check somebody who just doesn't know. They just clearly don't know the law, and they're not bad people. They're busy in life, busy with kids, and they don't know. And yeah, we can say, well, yeah, you're supposed to know, and yeah, that's a good response. But reality is, it's not easy. Hunting and fishing is complicated. I'm sorry to say it. Then there's the type of person, I think, and as a field warden, you start to really make note of these people. There's somebody who goes out with no intention to violate, but boy, the ducks are really flying, or the deer are out everywhere, or they're driving home and the deer crosses the road in front of them in the headlights. They're an opportunist. They make the bad decision or a wrong decision based on the circumstance in front of them. And that's, from a warden perspective, you gotta address that. The first one I talked to, maybe just try to educate them and try to get them back on the right track. The one where I think wardens really take pride in their work is the person who wakes up in the morning and leaves the house with full intent of violating the law, and they don't care. They don't care about the resource. They don't care about the impact. They don't care that there's a safety element to shooting deer at night. They don't care that somebody's been legally trying to harvest that deer with a bow for hours upon hours upon hours. They're going to just poach it, and they don't care. And it's really kind of the type of people that we deal with as conservation wardens, or Tyler, in the country. And you try to juggle in your mind, what do you do in those circumstances, and what's the right course of action from an enforcement perspective?
Yeah, I like that you touched on the whole people poaching deer or being opportunistic. I've heard a lot of people lately in the past couple of years that say deer make people stupid, and I'd have to say I'd agree, because I see a lot of crazy stuff during gun season, it seems like.
Yeah, deer make smart people stupid. They wreck families. They wreck friendships. I hunt deer. I think Tyler's similar to me. I hunt deer because I like eating deer, and I like it in my freezer. But boy, there are people that just go crazy over it. I've never understood it. Although my wife would say I go crazy over waterfowl. So it's probably just a different world for me.
So I kind of want to talk about when you guys apprehend somebody that has illegal items, stolen firearms, drugs, and even poached animals. Can you kind of walk through what the process of preserving and storing evidence looks like? I imagine storing drugs or firearms might be easy, but if you get a poached animal, you probably have to freeze it or preserve it somehow. So I'm kind of interested to hear how you do all that.
Yeah, so the firearms, the contraband, that stuff, it is fairly simple. It's like any other police agency. You log it, you put a tag on it, and you log it into evidence, and you store it for the court date, basically as evidence. We have evidence rooms, we have safes, we keep the stuff in. We have central locations to do that. Where things get a little tricky is, you get that person who just shot that 200-inch deer illegally. Now you got to take this, 250-pound deer that's got a rack that won't fit through a doorway. And what do you do with that thing? And, the way it's set up in our state is when somebody illegally harvests a natural resource, the title of that critter reverts back to the state. And we have the authority and ability to dispose of that animal in the best way possible. And when it comes to folks that like in that situation shoot a deer illegally, a lot of times we'll take the rack off it and store that as evidence, but we will get that deer so it doesn't go to waste. We every warden I know has a list of folks that are in need, so to speak, and we're able to get those deer to those folks that need them, that are going to use them and eat them. And we're able to, for a very small fee, be able to transfer those deer over to those folks, and they get put to good use. So sometimes, you get a big fish case, poaching case, something like you take a bunch of fish, and you get a freezer full of fish. After that kind of goes through the court system, if those fish are still good, we oftentimes will donate those to food pantries, and they use them to, again, feed people that need the food. So
If you are, let's say, out at 2 a.m. and you've got a list of, let's say, 20 people, and you call all 20 people and you don't get an answer, can you keep the deer yourself for meat, or is that against policy?
yeah, we wouldn't be able to do that. We can a lot of times hang it up or find a storage facility to find it, keep it good overnight, and then work on it the next day and find somebody. I think every time I've had one, I've been able to get rid of it. We keep those lists and people want them,
Yeah.
So I can't think of a time where I haven't been able to find a home for one. So, yeah.
So I'd be interested to hear kind of, let's say, now versus, when Todd was an officer, what the difference might be in this. But when you're kind of out working, would you say that you catch more people doing wildlife crimes, or would you say that it's maybe half and half with other activities, or more of the other activities, such as like reckless driving or like DUIs or fighting or theft or anything like that? What would you say you kind of do more of? I'm sure it probably depends on the time of year.
Yeah, I'll maybe touch a little bit. Wisconsin wardens is probably a little bit unique in that although we're certified law enforcement officers, we talked about that earlier in the podcast, all the training, other than on state property, wardens do not in Wisconsin do not have full police power. So if a warden is driving down the road and the car in front of him is swerving, showing evidence of impairment, we can't just take action unless it's either a crime in our presence. So a fight could be a crime in our presence. We can take action simply by calling the radio and saying, telling the sheriff's department or the state patrol that what you're observing, and then they would expand your authority and allow you to then make that traffic stop. So that said, wardens work very closely with law enforcement agencies, provide backup, get involved in those situations. But, on a day-to-day basis, other than the state parks and state lands, they're really focused on the rec vehicle, natural resources, environmental law. And I'll let Tyler maybe add to that.
Yeah, no, I mean, Todd did a nice job kind of explaining it. There's no question, though, that, we work and a lot of us work in pretty rural communities, and there may be one sheriff's deputy on a shift and then us. And there's many times where we are first on scene to something because a law enforcement officer needs to go. It's just it's Wisconsin's a home rule state, we call it, and we just kind of got to navigate that. And we work very closely with our law enforcement partners. We are their backup; they're our backup, and we have great working relationships. And we do a lot of that general law enforcement work, but it is, the responsibility of that local municipality, whether it's the county, the city, or whatever. Like it's their baby, so to speak, and they're responsible for it. Yeah, we can help, and we have the authority to help, and even take some of those and even run with them at some time if they're so short staffed they can't deal with it. But the way we have it set up, it is really nice because it does really focus our staff to do the work that we are funded to do, and that's through those natural resource funding accounts. That when you buy a license, what do you want? What do you want the DNR warden doing? Would you want them making a bunch of traffic stops and doing that stuff for a different municipality, or do you want them out there working on protecting the resource and the safety of folks out using the resource? I think that's probably a no-brainer if you ask any hunter.
Hey guys, real quick ad from our sponsors over at Buzzard Roost Saddles. Buzzard Roost saddles are proudly made in the USA, and their independent angle adjustments on the top and bottom panels provide the ultimate comfort for those long sits. Buzzard Roost stands by their motto, "We ain't fancy," and they help you achieve your goal while keeping things simple. You can connect with Buzzard Roost Saddles on Facebook and Instagram, or you can visit their website at buzzardroostsaddles.com. Yeah,
Well,
that's definitely a no-brainer for me, I know. I want to kind of dive into, I guess I'll take two questions here and make them into one, but I want to talk about what kind of fuels the black market, wild sell of wild game. And then I don't know if you can talk about this or not. Maybe you can just kind of keep it pretty general, but have you guys ever worked a case that involved the illegal sale of animals or animal parts, and maybe mention the outcome of that, or maybe what it was, whether it be, somebody selling venison or beaver tails or whatever it might be?
I think just to touch on it, I think, and we talked a little bit about with ginseng, I think anytime there's a monetary value or people start to sell things commercially, you put a higher risk on the resources. And, there's a reason back in the early 1900s, they eliminated commercial sale of wild game, is because that was driving, market hunters to, harvesting animals to, near extinction. So to have that continue and kind of eliminate that from the mindset of people who hunt and fish, I think that's important. That's an important component of it. In my 30-year career, I think I dealt with some ginseng violations, which was the illegal sale. I don't recall, maybe helping some others, but I don't recall an actual case where I was involved in somebody illegally selling game, venison, fish, or not. But I know, we've had varying cases around the state that did occur.
Yeah, I can jump in here. So, basically, when you look at the resources, they're held for the public, right? The public trust, and they're for the public to use and enjoy for recreational purposes primarily. The few resources we have out there that are opened up for commercial use, where you can actually make some money off them, are highly regulated. So basically meaning, if you're able to make money off it, you're going to have some reporting requirement. There's going to be license requirements. There's going to be audits that are going to take place. That's something we get trained on doing audits for, whether it's commercial fishermen, ginseng, taxidermists, whatever commercial side of the resource. There's a long paper trail there that allows us to basically monitor it and see what's going on. And if we need to look at, promoting some change in some in laws, down the road to protect something that's going sideways, we can do that. So as far as cases that we've been involved with, a lot of times when you get commercialization of the resource, the federal government will get involved because a lot of times it doesn't stay in the state, it ends up going out of state. So our special agents with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, we work hand in hand with those folks to really handle a lot of those cases. They have a little better, I guess, ability to prosecute those folks through the federal government. And I know some of the cases I've worked with those folks on is the herptile trade, so the reptiles, amphibians, folks picking up like Blanding's turtles, and then shuffling those through the market, whether for trade or for money. We had one case here locally where they were picking up Blanding's turtles and then trading them for other turtles across state lines down into the Florida, and it was merely for, folks like to collect those things. They like having those snakes and turtles and all that creepy crawly type critters. And there is a market for them, and there is a trade for them. And those folks got prosecuted through the federal government, and hopefully are no longer participating in that. At a little more of a local level, we have some sturgeon, whether it's shovelnose sturgeon or lake sturgeon, both game fish, and you can't commercialize those. And folks have taken advantage of that when the fish are, whether you're spearing sturgeon up on the Lake Winnebago area, they've taken the eggs, process into caviar, and then sell it again. We get the feds involved with that again because all that stuff's going out of state. And those folks have been held accountable for that. Kind of smaller scale stuff we had. I was involved in it was a panfish over limit case over here on Lake Onalaska, which is a backwater of the Mississippi River. It was an individual that was a kind of repeat offender, long DNR violation history, over limits, using too many lines, and we got numerous tips about this person going out multiple times a day taking limits again. So we started to work that case. Took a couple of years to kind of build a case against him. I kind of got him on that perfect day where he went out in the morning. We observed him keep a limit, went back out in the afternoon, kept another limit, and then we contacted him. That turned into a search warrant at his house, which turned into him having about 2,500 some panfish in multiple freezers that he was bagging up and taking to Chicago to sell. So I guess that would be an example of a commercialization of the resource. Wow. And again, that was one where we got into the house and found all those fish that were being shuttled to the Chicago area. And on top of that, the person's adult son was also running a drug house out of the house too, and selling marijuana and other items. So yeah, that would be, I guess, kind of a little variety of what we see as far as commercialization of the resource and what might be going on out there.
That's a heck of a lot of panfish to be selling. My gosh, I can't imagine. Wow. So I told a few of the listeners, I talked to many listeners on the podcast. So I told a few of them that I had you guys coming on. So of course they all want to know some wild or crazy stories that you guys have experienced. Is there maybe one in particular that sticks out for both of you? Maybe somebody tried to run you off the road, or, I don't know what it might be, but I'd love to hear your craziest story in the field.
Oh, there's a lot of them, I guess. So Todd's got more than me probably, so it'd be tough to pick. I don't know. Do you want a deer story? You want like a major over limit story, like a deer decoy story? I mean, I don't know. Maybe Todd wants to start if one sticks out in your mind, Todd.
Let's do a deer story if you got one.
Sure.
I'll do a decoy story. Actually, okay. It was I was first year on. So the decoys we had back then were not robotic. They were stuffed. I mean, they were taxidermied, so there was the hide similar to what's on the Tyler's backdrop. And by policy, we typically don't have large antlers. We just have a normal deer. But I was with an experienced warden, and we put it out, and we were gonna place it, and put it out. And I was brand new to it. I'd seen decoys. I I think I was probably still in some training aspect. Hadn't used a decoy myself, and we put it out, and I'm like, nobody is going to shoot that. It just didn't. I couldn't get my head around. It was deer season, daylight, wasn't at night. I'm like, so I, friendly wager in the truck with the experienced warden. I said, nobody's going to shoot it. I wasn't saying it was a waste of time. I just didn't think it was going to happen. And he said, betcha, probably a beer. Somebody shoots it within 30 minutes. I'm like, game on. Yeah, I'm good with that. Literally the first truck drove by, brakes on, and the guy I was with had been on 20 some years. So it was like a sports broadcaster doing the play-by-play. He's like, oh, brakes on. He saw it. Figured it was a he. Backing up. Oh, he's trying to line up. And so he was doing play-by-play. We could see the truck. Long story short, he shot it. And so we pull out and stop him. And so I lost the bet for one. But here it was an individual. We were near a county line, but this individual was in the wrong county. He was in a county-owned vehicle. So the county owned it, had the municipal plates on it. Yeah. It wasn't like a law enforcement officer. I don't know what job it was. He didn't work for the county. His wife worked for the county. So he was out driving around in his wife's work vehicle. And when he shot from the vehicle out the window. I think the concussion of the round going off more than likely cracked the windshield of the vehicle. So, we gave our ticket, and but that gentleman had a whole lot worse going on, trying to explain to his wife and or the county what happened to that vehicle. But that was my first experience with a decoy, and a lot of other experiences in 30 years running the decoy of varying types. But that was certainly a memorable one for me. So
I can imagine running those decoys have to, it almost has to be like out hunting a deer or something. You're just kind of like waiting for somebody to come by, and see it being a little nerve-wracking too. What about you, Tyler? Anything stick out in your head? Anything wild and crazy?
Well, I guess I want to share a case with a deer farm outfitter type. It's just such a unique case that I figured I listened to a couple of your podcasts. I know you guys talk a lot about whitetail hunting, and I figured this would be one I'd want to share maybe. And it's been adjudicated, so I can share it pretty openly.
Cool.
But it was one from 2016. It was a Sunday. I was home with the family, hanging out in January, doing the family dad thing, and I get a call from the hotline about a possible bait pile that a hunter found next to this deer farm. And this is it's a deer farm. It's Brush Ranch Outfitters up in Trempealeau County. It's like, I forget, it's like 2,000 some acres, fenced in enclosure where they sell hunts, which is completely legal. They're licensed through DATCAP, and they have a fence license through the DNR, and it's a totally legitimate business. There's a handful of them in the state. And anyways, they found this bait pile on the outside of the fence, and the person who called was concerned about it. So I ran up there and found it, and it was a really unique situation. And there was, on the inside of the fence, you could bait as much as you want. There's really no hunting laws that apply on the inside of the fence, because you can pretty much, those deer in there are like cattle, basically. That's how they'd be treated. But on the outside of the fence, you couldn't bait, and the season was closed, and so on and so forth. So I took a look at that bait pile, and there was a bait pile on the outside of the fence, and then there was a blood trail that led from just a little ways away from the bait pile, and then what it looked like it went through the fence and into the inside of the fence. So that's kind of piqued my interest. What's going on here? Did a hunter that, on the inside of the fence, you can hunt year round. You can hunt with rifles, whatever firearms you want, bows you want to hunt with. And I'm just like, this just doesn't seem right. So I started looking at the fence, and It looked like the fence had been cut and then wired shut again, like there was a door in the fence. So long story short, we started the investigation on this place and did a little bit of surveillance and took a look at a few things and found out that these folks were actually baiting deer on the outside of this deer farm fence and on the inside of the fence. They were opening these hinged gates they had cut in the fence open, and they would bait wild deer into this enclosure. And then once they came in, they'd shut the fence, so they'd have a new buck or doe or whatever that was a wild deer on the inside of the fence, and they'd sell these hunts on the inside of the fence for over $3,000 a deer.
Wow.
And through the investigation, we ended up going through records that they had to file with Department of Ag, and they talked to a few folks and got some pretty good evidence about the violations that were taking place. Charged the company, charged the two primary individuals, the owner and a hired hand, for basically baiting deer into that fence, also shooting deer on the outside of the fence, and then registering them through Department of Ag on the inside of the fence. And when they finally settled the case with the district attorney's office in Trumbull County, they they paid like $20,000, lost their hunting privileges, had to donate $10,000 to the local sportsman's club. And, they were held accountable for that activity that they were participating in. And, I always think on a lot of those cases, what we find a lot of times is just a little bit of what was actually going on.
Yeah.
So, who knows how long they'd been doing that? Who knows how many wild deer they took from the licensed buyers in the state of Wisconsin. And, the deer they shot on the inside of that fence are all trophy animals. They're all, a lot of them 150 inches or bigger. And I think a lot of those deer ended up being wild deer that were brought in through those openings, which I think would upset any law-abiding deer hunter for sure. But that is just one. It's a unique case. It's catching people that needed to be caught and holding them accountable for the things that they did. And I figured I'd share that one on your podcast here, since you guys are all about whitetails.
Yeah. That's I never, I've always thought people poaching deer, poaching them over a bait pile or whatever, but I've never thought about somebody trying to sneak one into their high fence. That's just that's absolutely insane. Do those guys or people involved, is losing your license something that is a lifetime thing, or is that a short time, 5-year kind of thing, or can you say?
Yeah, so the way we don't have the lifetime revocation. Some states have that as a tool they can use. We have we can request on any, natural resource. So if we write a ticket, we can request revocation through the court. We don't necessarily get it, but we can request it. Usually on like a civil ticket, you'd ask for 1 year. Any crime. So if they commit a crime, it has an automatic 3-year revocation that is tied to that. And again, just because it says it's automatic or it's tied in there, the courts and the judge can do things with that. So, a situation like that outfitter, they lost their hunting privileges. I think it was for 6 years, but they're running a high fence operation, and the stuff they do on the inside of the fence, they can keep doing it, So they just couldn't hunt anywhere on the outside of that fence. So.
Anybody listening, if you're going to look at an outfitter, make sure you check them out really good. No shady outfitting hunting, especially you're listening to this podcast. I don't want to hear about you going to some shady outfitter somewhere. Don't even think about it. So I don't want to keep you guys too long. Like I said, I'm super glad that you guys took the time to come on and talk to me. I think it's good for people to kind of understand how fish and game agencies work, and it's interesting to see kind of the difference between Wisconsin and Indiana or Kentucky or whatever state it might be. So I just have one final question I want to finish up with. I know just through talking to people out in the field, seeing other hunters, running into them at the the tackle shop or whatever it might be. A lot of hunters and anglers have animosity towards game wardens, and they kind of think that game wardens are out to get them. If you're out in the field and one drives by, it's like, they're going to try to come get you on something. How do you guys think we can kind of bridge that gap between hunters and anglers and wardens?
I'll maybe touch a little bit and then let Tyler jump on. But I think the biggest thing is, conservation wardens, doesn't matter what state you're from, law enforcement officers, regardless, we're people. We got families, we got kids, we coach little league, we go to the school, we're on the school boards. We're no different than everybody else out there. So I think that's one thing, is recognize we're just people who have a job, and the job really is to protect things that, the natural resources and the environment that not we all, but a lot of people enjoy. And I don't know that there's there's not a good conservation officer out there who is about gotcha or, got to write a ticket, anything of the sort. We got a job to do, and sometimes, we got to hold people accountable for the things they do. I think a little bit of it is we maybe as agencies, and we've gotten better with it, we don't necessarily tell all the good stories and share all the good stories that we do, hours upon hours at school groups and county fairs and hunting expos and talking to people and talking to kids and, saving lives and saving puppies and getting deer out of soccer fences. And I mean, all of the great things that they do, we don't maybe talk about enough and tell about enough. And, they instantly hear about the story. And I think it's also careful to say, is it really the truth or is it just a story? So I was a new warden in a county, and I ran into somebody, and they said, "Oh, you're the new warden. You gave somebody a ticket for, peeing on the ice. It was wintertime." And I'm like, no, I've never given somebody a ticket for peeing on the ice. To be honest with you, I pee on the ice myself from time to time. It's just, you got to kind of break down the BS from the facts.
Yeah.
And that's not always easy to do. But sometimes I think, and I encourage people, when you hear the story, if it doesn't sound right, maybe ask a few extra questions to figure out, really, is that really the story, or is that the long folklore tale that's come along the way? And they're probably bad examples of law enforcement anywhere, and those stories are out there, and they stick. They never leave. It's all the good things we do, and if somebody makes a mistake or does something, that story just never leaves us. And oftentimes they're very old and fabricated over the course of time. But I go back to we're people doing a job, and we're no different than you, Adam. We enjoy the natural resources. We enjoy hunting and fishing, and our job just is making sure that it's here for your kids and your grandkids to enjoy into the future.
Yeah, I think it's you might bust one guy or write one guy a ticket, and he wants to make up a bunch of stories and pass it on to his buddies, who tell their kids and tell their nephews, and before you know it, it's just one big long fabricated story, right? Tyler, anything from you about trying to bridge the gap, or do you think Todd's pretty well covered it?
Yeah, I'll chime in a little bit. I guess what I want folks to remember is we're on the same team. Like, we work for you. We want to, keep you safe and keep the resources there for everybody to enjoy. And to be honest with you, we can't do our job without you, without the folks that are out there recreating. Like, you're our eyes and ears. You're the ones that are holding folks accountable by calling us and telling us what's going on. And we can't do our job without you. And I can tell you, one of my favorite parts about being a conservation warden is going out in the field and having conversations with people during just normal compliance checks. And I found myself, all of a sudden, a half an hour goes by and you're talking to a group of duck hunters, and you're just shooting the breeze, and you're getting to know them on kind of a personal level, and they're getting to know you on kind of a personal level. And you walk away from it thinking, man, I could hunt right alongside those guys or gals or whoever. And like 90% of the people or more out there are good people that want to continue to have a resource to use and enjoy. And if folks do ever find themselves on in an enforcement situation where they're getting issued a ticket for something or getting charged with something, I guess I just ask that you remember it's not personal. It's never personal. We have a job to do, and we do it in the most professional manner that we possibly can and treat people fairly. And that's what we do. And we enjoy being out there. We enjoy talking to folks and seeing folks enjoy the resource, and we want to be out there and enjoying it too. So,
yeah, I always tell my wife, if I'm ever hunting a new area or something, we don't really kind of know. Maybe if we're hunting some public, we don't really know the whole kind of how it works around there. If game warden's going to be around or not or whatever. I always tell my wife that I hope I run into them because I don't run into wardens enough. I think I've maybe 3 times in my entire life, and honestly, I wish I ran into them more because I love talking to them out in the field. So, I guess can you kind of tell the listeners where they can go to learn more about Wisconsin game wardens, and maybe if they want to look into maybe becoming one themselves?
Yeah, the easiest way is just go to dnr.wi.gov, and that's our main website for the Wisconsin DNR. And in the search field, just type in warden or warden recruitment, and there'll be a couple different options that pop up there. But the warden recruitment page is a great page. It has everything from just pictures of wardens out in the field working to kind of see what they do. It has a little video on there of, if you want to become a conservation warden, it has some video footage there. And then it has kind of all the requirements as well. And when there is a job opening announcement, it'll have a link to the WISC jobs site where you can go on and look at the requirements and apply if you're interested. So, but definitely for anybody who's thinking about it, it's a great career. And if you want it bad enough, you can get it. You just, you got to work for it a little bit. You got to be willing to be a little mobile, probably, and maybe work in a state that you weren't thinking about working in. But I would never do anything different. I'm never going to be rich, but I'm rich in a different way. There's no question. So,
yeah, definitely rich in a different way. Money doesn't mean everything. I'm definitely jealous that you get to spend a lot of your time out in the woods and being around that kind of stuff. So, again, I want to thank you guys for taking the time and coming on. I was excited to do this podcast. I was looking forward to it, and I'm glad that you guys were able to be the first wardens on the Hunt the Wild podcast. I got a couple listeners. I know Eric from Okayest Hunter. I don't know if you know his podcast or not, but he's from Wisconsin, so I'm sure he'll be interested to listen in and hear what you guys have to say.
Appreciate the opportunity. Thanks, Adam.
Yep.
Yeah, thanks, Adam.
Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Hunt the Wild podcast. If you enjoyed the show and it's brought you some sort of value, I'd love if you could give me a rating and a review. Just a few seconds of your time can help me better understand the type of content you all enjoy, and it would mean the world to me to hear from all of you.